It was a regular Monday morning at a downtown bank, fluorescent lights humming, coffee cups on desks, and the same tired rhythm of customers asking questions no one had time to answer. At one counter, an elderly woman stood quietly, her coat a little too big, her hands trembling as she held her debit card and a small notebook filled with handwritten numbers. The teller, young and exhausted, sighed and said he had already checked her account several times. There were no deposits, no incoming wires, nothing pending. She looked up with kind eyes and asked softly, "Maybe check one more time? Maybe her son has finally sent the money this month." The teller's patience cracked, saying, "Ma'am, that's not how it works. If there's no transfer, there's no money." His tone sharper than he meant. The line behind her groaned, people rolling their eyes. The old woman's lips moved, a quiet prayer, perhaps, or hope refusing to die. The bank manager, noticing the raised voices, stepped out of his office and asked what was going on. The teller muttered that she'd been coming for months, every few days, always hoping her son sent something. The manager asked him to bring her to his office. She sat down slowly, her voice fragile but polite, explaining that her son lived in another state and every month he used to send a few $100s for her groceries and medicine. But 3 months had passed and nothing came through. The manager nodded gently, looking at her account on his screen. Last deposit 3 months ago. Outside, phones rang and keyboards clicked, but inside the small glass room, the world had gone quiet, leaving only the sound of a mother's disappointment and a son's absence. If this story touched your heart, hit like and stay with us. Sometimes the smallest stories hold the biggest truths. The manager asked for her son's contact number and dialed it from his desk. A woman answered, her voice young, distracted, and slightly impatient. He introduced himself, saying he was calling from the bank about her husband's mother. She paused, then said he was at work and asked what this was about. He explained softly that her mother-in-law had been visiting every week, confused, hoping her son had sent money, and he just wanted to make sure everything was all right. The woman laughed dryly and said, "Look, she's not our problem anymore. We've got our own bills. Don't call again." The line went dead before he could say another word. For a long moment, he stared at the phone, the cold click of disconnection echoing louder than any sound in the office. He turned back toward the woman across the desk, who was still waiting patiently, unaware of the cruelty that had just unfolded. She smiled faintly, saying her son must be busy. Maybe he had forgotten. Maybe next week something would come. Her optimism cut deeper than any insult. The manager told her kindly to give him a few minutes and stepped out. His assistant whispered that her account truly had no funds and that there were no mistakes on their side. He replied quietly, "I know." He looked around the office, the endless stream of customers, the numbers, the rules, and felt an ache in his chest. For a moment, he saw his own mother sitting there, waiting for a call that never came. He remembered missing her birthday because of a late meeting, remembered her hospital bed, the unanswered voicemail, and the funeral he reached too late. Guilt turned into clarity. This wasn't about banking anymore. It was about something far more human. The simple duty of being there when someone needs you most. If you believe kindness still matters, share this moment and subscribe for more stories that remind us what humanity feels like. He returned to his office, sat down, and told his assistant to prepare a withdrawal slip. The assistant looked puzzled and asked, "What for?" The manager said, "Transfer a few months' worth of funds from my personal account to hers and mark it as a courtesy credit." The assistant hesitated, saying this wasn't standard procedure. The manager looked up and said firmly, "Neither is compassion. but maybe it should be. When the elderly woman saw the confirmation receipt, her eyes widened. Her fingers trembled as she asked, "Did the money finally come, son?" The manager smiled softly and said, "Yes, ma'am, your account's been credited." Tears filled her eyes as she whispered, "God bless you. I prayed every night for this." He nodded, barely able to speak, and said, "You take care of yourself, okay?" She thanked them again and walked out slowly, clutching her small purse as if it were the world. Through the glass, he watched her step into the sunlight, her silhouette fragile, yet somehow strong. The assistant came back, asking why he'd do it when clearly the son had abandoned her. The manager looked out the window and said quietly, "Because I never got to do it for my own mother." Outside, traffic moved, people hurried, life didn't stop. But inside that office, time slowed for just a second, a man finding redemption through a stranger's need. The camera would fade out slowly as his voice returns in narration. You don't need to be someone's blood to be their family. Sometimes humanity is the only currency that truly matters. If this story made you stop and think, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, because every act of compassion deserves to be remembered.